Hi, today we are going to talk a little bit about figurative language, and we're going to use some figurative imagery in our art today. So, you've learned about metaphors and similes, and sometimes we hear those even in songs, definitely in books, but even in song lyrics. Some examples: "You're a firework," "Life's a highway," "You're my kryptonite." Those are examples of figurative language where you're using an image to explain something. So today, we're going to do an image for ourselves, and I chose a tree. I would encourage you to think about an image for yourself, and you can follow along with me with the tree, or you can go on your own idea and think of something that represents you. And I'll talk a little bit about trees because I do think they represent all of us in a lot of ways. So to start with, the whole page here is going to be focused on my tree. So I'm going to go ahead and just get started with the trunk. So I'm doing a curved line up, and you can look at an actual tree if you want when you're drawing this, or you can just kind of follow this pattern here. And then I'm just going to start making some branches, so I curve out to the sides, and then I come back along the edge here. They get thinner as they go to the ends, right? So then I do like a V, so I'm breaking it off there, and then come back down. Maybe I come down a little ways, and then another branch coming up here. Maybe it has two branches, so I stop, I pick up my pen, I do a V, and then I come back down on the other side. There's no right or wrong with these trees. There can be all kinds of different branches. Okay. There's some main branches, and then I could add some branches coming off the ends into smaller V's, and eventually I'll close those off like this. My tree is going to have some leaves growing on it, so I'm kind of imagining my tree in the spring because that's what it is right now. But you can choose, so that's one of the things about trees that I feel represents me, or just people in general, is that there are different seasons and changes. So, it is always growing, but things are changing as it grows. The cycle of the seasons happens. And so each year the tree grows and grows, but as it grows, you'll see different things happening on the outside. Sometimes it has leaves, sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes it even has blossoms or fruit. And sometimes the leaves are there, but they're changing and falling. So I think that represents a lot of things about, it could represent a lot of things about humans, and could be different emotions, or it could be the way that we learn new things. We go through stages where first we don't know anything about it, and then leaves start to grow, we start to learn, and then we start to learn even more, so much that we can produce like results. We have fruit growing or blossoms, things like that, and then it can change again as we learn more about it. We realize that there's more to learn, and we kind of start over with new leaves again in the spring. So that's one element of trees that I think could work for the metaphor. And I'm just adding more branches. As you can see, I'm just branching off from the sides and then adding leaves, and you can choose what kind of leaves you want to do. There's lots of different kinds of trees. I chose to do a deciduous tree, so one that loses its leaves every year. But I mean, you could have chosen a coniferous tree, a tree with cones, and like a pine tree, if that represents more what you're trying to say about yourself. And a couple things that I learned about trees that I thought was really neat, that helps with this metaphor, is that trees, if they get the appropriate nourishment and care, they just keep growing their whole lives. They might even keep growing. Scientists aren't really sure, but if no, sickness came to them or other things, that they have the ability to keep growing. So they do reach a stopping point with their height, but they don't ever reach a stopping point with gaining mass and getting wider. So of course I'm not saying that literally about humans, that we also reach a certain height, but hopefully we don't always just get wider. But we do keep in a figurative way. We keep learning and growing all throughout our lives, and that's such a cool thing. I've got my main tree here finished. I want you to go ahead and add details of texture if you want. And you can keep working on it. But I'll go ahead and sign my name here, and then we'll be adding color. But yeah, so that I thought that was really neat to know that they keep growing. So when you look inside, a really old tree, you'll see all those rings if you cut across the trunk, and it just shows such a history of growth. That is definitely like me and like all of us. We have each year, we learn different things. We add another layer to our rings, and that's pretty cool. That's part of why we have school, but also life experiences help us learn and grow. And they just become, part of what makes us stronger each year. So that is just something that I thought was really neat to learn about. The other thing was that trees actually grow faster the older they get. So that is interesting too. And of course that's the same thing as the width. We're not talking about actually growing faster the older you get, like physically, but like a tree, the more you learn at school and things, the more you can add to that knowledge. And so in some ways, the same thing could be said of us, that each year kind of brings a readiness for even more learning and growth. It's something that I just find really hopeful, that we always can keep growing, and we're never done. We never have a point where it's too late to learn something. We can keep going, throughout our whole lives. So one tree I heard about was over 500 years old, and it was still growing and going through all of these normal tree cycles every year. So that is how I would like to be. Hopefully, I probably won't live to be 500, but hopefully throughout my life I will keep learning and keep wanting to find out new things and improve myself and learn things that I can do to help others. So maybe those are some of the things you can be thinking about as this school year ends and next school year begins. Over the summer too, think maybe there's some new things that you can learn about new hobbies or talents or interests that you have that you might have some extra time to look into this summer. And just know that each year you're going to learn more and more, and it will add up, and it'll be great. In the end, we'll all be hopefully big, strong trees in a lot of good ways. So the coloring for this is pretty much up to you. I'm just doing some basic coloring. To me, these colors are also part of the metaphor. I really relate to nature, and I'm just sticking with the natural colors here. If you have another layer of metaphor that you want to add on, like we talked about some of those lyrics at the beginning, fireworks, being a highway or a kryptonite, these different imagery, and even some songs use like a really strong metal. I'm titanium, things like that. So as you're coloring, if you have a certain color or material that means something to you, you can use that to add to our figurative image here. And like I said, for me, I think a lot of these colors that are actually the colors of the tree are part of the metaphor for me. They're the colors of growth and just how natural growth and change are, and how they're just part of our lives, and they're good. They bring good results. So that's why I'm sticking with these colors that are just more normal for a tree. But it's wide open for you. You can choose. Hopefully you'll choose a positive image for yourself that can kind of help remind you of your own strength and power, especially for doing good. Okay. Think about the background too when you think about this. So that's just another place to add meaning to your metaphor. You could be anything, the sky looks a lot of different ways. If you want to just have sky in the background, you can add mountains or things behind it that would possibly represent you. Before I go on, I'm going to take other shades of brown and green and just some other colors and add them in some places to add some dimension to my drawing. So that is a great way to make it look a little more natural, is to add different shades of the same color. I'm not sure how well it will show up for you, but I'm adding some different browns in here, and that should help. Let's see, was this the one I already used? Yes. Okay, this brown. And you might even, maybe it was that one. You might even need to add some other colors that aren't the actual color. For example, if I'm doing brown and I want to add some more dimension to it, I might actually add just some blue or some yellow or purple. So these colors, it's not necessarily what you see in nature on the tree, but depends on the lighting. But in art, they can work together to create the illusion of a color. So we've talked about complementary colors in our art class before, and so you probably know that when you mix two complementary colors across from each other, the colors across from each other on the color wheel, they blend to make brown or gray or just a neutral color. So I'm going to show you a little example. So I'm going to do some blue, mixing in some blue here. You can see that it just makes it look like there's some dark spots. It doesn't really look blue necessarily, it just adds. And then I'll get some orange to kind of balance it out. That's my other color across from blue on the color wheel, so it's the complement complementary color. And this, so it just brings out having warm and cool next to each other, the orange and the blue. Also brings some contrast, kind of warms up the picture. So maybe you can see that this is getting a little more dimension now. And just going to do the same thing with putting in some yellow. I really love mixing colors. I think it's really fun because it's just an experiment a lot of times. I mean, you use what you know, just like in this metaphor. The more you do it, you can learn. You kind of remember from last time what worked or what happened when you did certain colors together. But I think it's really fun. You just can think of the color and then think of a color that's close to it, or opposite of it, and go one way or the other. So brown, to me, it's like all the other colors because you can make brown out of all the other colors. So to me, it's an open spectrum here. You can use any color to mix with brown, and it will go well with the brown. All right, so I've got an interesting tree here now. The only colors I didn't really use yet are green and red in there, and I actually do want to use some green in my tree because I want it to tie in with, I have all this other green around it. So I'm going to mix it in, and it turns out I'm having a great metaphor here of having this tree trunk that is made of so many different colors. That is so much how we are as humans. We are just made of so many different, wide range of experiences, and that is fantastic. All right, because then we understand. We understand more of what other people go through, and we kind of just have a better vision of life. So for the leaves, I'm going to do some green, then I'll probably add in the two colors that make up green, so some yellow. Just adding some highlights here and there to add to this. See how that helps. It just makes it look a little bit more real and alive. And then do the same thing down here on the grass. So crayons, they can seem simple, and it's actually deceiving. They can be just as complex as any other medium, I would say, just depending on how you use them and blend them. And if you are getting to a point where you need to take a break with your hand or just from sitting and focusing, then you can get up and go take a break. Just stretch your legs or do something else for a few minutes, or just for longer, and come back in a few minutes or tomorrow or whenever you are ready to get started again. That way you can make sure you're doing quality work, not just finishing up really quick. Okay, and then let's get I'm going to put in some bluish green here into the grass. That's a kind of a common color to find in nature too, bluish green. You can kind of do patches of grass, like the sun will highlight different parts when you're looking at it. That's an option. Put some blue-green up here too, into these spring leaves that are just getting started. My favorite, I think, moment for a tree this season is when it has part of the leaves or blossoms there, and part are still opening. So it's like even before this, actually, when it's just like a little bit of both. So you're just starting to see what it was and what it's going to become. I just think that's a really cool time for a tree. And just to show you one other thing. Okay, so I've got my green here. to make it have a little more contrast and depth, I'm taking the opposite color and I'm going to add in just a few patches lightly. Not trying to make it stand out too much, but just a few little zigzag patches here of red. So I'm using the opposite, and it just kind of adds a little life to it. And same thing with the leaves. Just going to do that up here too. Just kind of a fun trick to mix up your colors so that there's a little bit of more neutral and kind of ties things together. Hopefully I never did the red on the tree. I'll get a little bit of red on there too. All right, hopefully that kind of makes it flow, sharing those colors. Okay, I'm choosing a blue sky. This tree is very symbolic to me of just kind of the goodness of life and how things work out over time. And so I'm going to choose a blue sky for that because that represents happiness to me. Love seeing those blue skies that we've been having lately too. Oops, get that all colored in. My background is, I'm not going to spend as much time on the sky. I'm just going to kind of leave it a nice blue. I want the focus to be a little bit more on the tree. But if you chose a different background though, that'd be great to see what you do with maybe a night sky or a sunset or a sunrise. There are a lot of cool, maybe it's clouds, whatever you choose. Maybe it's a certain kind of weather, like it's raining and you love the rain. That's symbolic to you. So go ahead and do what speaks to you, what makes sense to you. And then we'll see how they all turn out. And that's also what's neat is we could all do the same object as a metaphor. We could all do a tree, but the way that we color it, or the details, the mood or the tone that we give it can change that image so we understand something different about each person by the way that they decided to color theirs and finish it off. Maybe you chose something totally different than a tree, and that's fine too. But yeah, so it's a lot of times that's what this figurative language is all about. It's all about adding a connotation to what we're saying or presenting. So we can just say, I grow, I learn, but when we say I'm a tree, I'm like a tree, it just adds a sense of complexity and positivity. I think just it gives it a different connotation of like long-lasting growth and learning. So whatever you choose, you can kind of think, what do people associate with that, and is that the message that I want to share when I'm using figurative language? Okay, I think I'm done. So here is my tree. I am a tree. My figurative language drawing here. I hope that you had a great time drawing today. And thank you so much for being here. Have a great day. Bye.